Are we live? We are live. Hello. This is SKALD TV with our second English installment. First one was 2 weeks ago. Our art director Thomas Miller did review some footage from ConQuest. Today we are more about where is Mythodea going in the future, especially from the gaming and game design aspect. Not that much about lore. We say hello to all our international players, and first we start with some disclaimers. We are on Twitch here. If you have an Amazon Prime account and you can become a Twitch Prime member, and you can then every month give us a free subscription, which helps us refinance this stream a little bit. Thank you in advance for that. Second of all, if you have the feeling you have a great idea that we should present here in the channel, or you have a character that we should introduce, or that you want to introduce, or you have a group that you want to be portrayed, or you have a project or an orga that you want to showcase here, please let us know. Write us an email to tb@skald.com. Our booker, Eva, the great Eva Brinkmann, who is not only our booker but also a moderator here in the stream, and so many things in this company. She will contact you and make an appointment, definitely. So without further ado, we right away get into it. Tonight with me is Lester, and Lester himself will explain now why he's sitting here and what he's actually doing here, and how did you start LARPing? How did this hobby hit you?
Okay, so the last question first, or should we start? There were so many questions. So I actually work here. Some people who come on the stream are guests. I work in this office where the set is. I work in the plot direction, the Regie in German, and I work with Julian and Ruth to try to establish the game world and some of the guiding principles, such as the rules and how we intend to further play and design mechanics that we put into the game world. That's pretty much my job. So whenever you write a mail to regie@mythodea.de, it will either be me if it's about NSCs or tribes who answers, Ruth if it's about the main plot or certain characters within the plot, and Julian if it comes to the campaign play. But we also communicate a lot with each other, so if one of us is, for instance, on holiday, you may reach me or Julian instead of Ruth at some point, or the other way around. We work quite well together.
So this is something that's quite new. So we installed this department, which is basically directing the everything that has to do with plot and gameplay in Mythodea. It's made up out of 3 people. It's Ruth, who is kind of the head of the department. It's you're mainly concerned with NSC questions, that is, and Julian, who is into the campaign play aspect of things. So, and you 3, but also work on all the plot and lore aspects on the
Yeah, we work together. We work with the community, and we also work on combined projects. Some projects, like the design principles, are quite large, so we have to work together. We need many eyes to check it out before we unveil them or we talk about them, like today. So yeah, we work on a lot of things together. It's a very creative and fun team, and I enjoy my work here. It's very interesting.
All right, and if somebody wants to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
I mean, we're very open about our Facebook. If you want to contact us or me on Facebook, it's Les Leva. A lot of people do that. I get more questions there. But my official mail, or our official mail, is regie@mythodea.de or regie@mythodea.de. Perhaps someone can put that in the chat.
In chat, please.
Both ways are legitimate.
Super. Can you do that can you put that in the chat, please? Thank you very much.
Oh wow! Okay, that's like magic.
That's like magic.
Exclamation regie will actually pull up all the information.
All right. Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
So if you type exclamation mark regie REGIE into the chat, you will get the email address and all the information about the regie. So that sounds a lot like you are doing everything, and so if you're a player or a community member who wants to get involved into the creative process, is there a way to do that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you can always contact us at the addresses we just provided. Currently, we're not writing so much on the plot. We're more focusing on the mechanics. Plot we will then start again once events are foreseeable. I mean, we have that little Corona issue you may have heard that's biting our hobby a little bit in the ass. I don't know, am I allowed to say ass? Anyway, we have a problem with Corona. Corona is making it hard for us to LARP, and for us here at Live Adventure, it's making it hard to organize events. So once we seem to get the go-ahead from the German government that certain events of that size are possible again, we'll get cracking and we'll start involving the community as we always have. And we have workshops coming up via Zoom. We've talked about them before, where we will instruct you, the community who want to participate, on how to get involved and how we will construct processes to work together. So we all work the same way. I mean, it only works. I mean, you're from IT, I think. I'm pretty sure, actually. You know that everyone has to work in the same way, otherwise you start working in different directions, and we all have to work in the same direction, otherwise it gets really confusing.
All right. So basically, if you want to get involved in the creative process, you can contact us through the website. There are contact forms for that. You can write us an email.
If you write us an email, we'll facilitate you with the contact form. Depends on what you want to do.
If we don't get back to you immediately, that doesn't mean we don't want to work with you. It just means that there's a lot of things to do at the moment. We will get back to you 100% of the cases, and we are planning to do Zoom workshops for the process. How do you get involved into our creative process? And if you want to, and how does it work, and what is it that needs to be done?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. So all right, that's why you're here. But how did this LARP thing hit you?
It's pretty much the same as everyone else, I think, or a lot of people who have been on this show. It's very similar. A little bit like the Autoblase, I did a little bit of pen and paper, and that was kind of fun. I didn't really know how role-playing worked so well. You know, it was more D&D, like, you know, looting and so forth, and having crazy adventures, and, you know, I mean, I was very young. But then I heard there's like a paintball like hobby.
You're
where
still
you.
I
am still 12 years old.
Yeah,
when I grow up, I don't know. I was going to make a joke. Anyway, I heard there was this hobby which is similar to paintball. Again, this is wrong. I feel bad saying it now, but I heard there was this hobby which was kind of like paintball, where you have plastic or gummy swords, and you whack each other, and you pretend to be heroes and mages. And I did that a little bit, and then I stopped. Then I tried one more time, and I found the right people. They taught me what role-playing was, and they taught me how to make a costume look a bit nicer. So I got more involved in role-playing and, you know, costuming, and now I really like LARP. I think it's kind of fun. It's enjoyable. I partake sometimes.
So what was your first event? The first event you visited? Do you still know that?
Yeah, it was Drachenfest way back
yeah.
then. I didn't have enough money for ConQuest and Drachenfest. They always told me ConQuest was even bigger, and I always heard about the undead flesh. And then one day, when I did have a little bit more money from a bunch of jobs, I started going to campaign events from Mythodea, and I started playing with the undead flesh. I had a pretty cool mentor back then, Husam Nimir. He helped me a lot with costuming.
Shout out to Husam if you're watching.
And he I don't know, just watching him do certain things and the way he acts was very inspiring. I had a bunch of people that I really looked up to, and yeah, sometimes we still LARP together, and that's really cool. That's how I got into LARP, really, with the wrong intention of hitting people with gummy swords, but I was very young. So
yeah, and were there other events like Drachenfest, ConQuest, other events you?
For the largest part, I did only do Drachenfest, but then I went to this one event that changed a lot for me, which was Albacha. It's a Oriental LARP. It's very serious. They talk about very serious topics, and it was one of the first times I didn't. There were moments I forgot I was at a LARP. It felt real, you know. There was real fear. There was real beauty, and just everything was so immersive, and all the props and effects were so convincing. That was kind of the moment when I started to think, man, I wish I could get involved and start doing something. Funnily enough, my work colleague is now one of the organizers from Albacha, the LARP that changed everything for me, and that's Ruth.
Yeah. But before Ruth started working for us, you worked here already, but you didn't know each other. Was that the case?
Yeah, it was kind of weird. I knew that Ruth existed. I went to her LARPs, but I never saw her face. I talked to her on the phone a few times about certain events, like we were going to meet up at Chronicles, and I did meet her there, but she was wearing a face mask, so I didn't know what she looked like. I knew that she was about this tall maybe, but I did not know much about her. She's the opposite of a normal LARPer. She doesn't look for the fame. And then the first time I met her was in Regensburg, I think. That was the first time.
True.
And it was weird as well, because, you know, she was like this dark, ominous figure that no one knew. And no pictures online of her. And
she has been a Mythodea player for almost 10 years.
Yeah, I know, but a lot of people don't know that because she always wears a mask.
Yeah. That's true.
It's crazy.
That's actually fun. Shall we look at some pictures from Lester's LARP career? Awesome. Please. Yeah.
What are we seeing?
That's
not on.
This is not on. We can't see this.
Uh-oh. What are you showing? What's the world seeing? That's the wrong picture.
This is your war dancer, I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first time I worked on an interpretation of a costume that Husam Nimir did. He made a war dancer with a lot of black dreadlocks and more of a darker armor. And he invited me to play a younger version, or like an apprentice, and we went to an Epic Empires con, and I didn't have a lot of gear back then. There was just like a little piece of a chest plate, some hair that I had help with from a friend named Alva. Yeah, but it developed, and I'm quite proud of it nowadays. I wish there were more LARPs where I could play that character. I wish there were more LARPs in general right now. But there I'm at Epic Empires my first time. That was last year. I was fighting with a Dark Elf, also Warhammer inspired. That's Feely. We have the best fights. That sounded very Trumpian. Didn't mean to sound that way. But I have the most fun fighting with her. It's always great. Those pictures are actually from Tom. That was the first time I wore that character. That's where I met Tom.
That's actually how it happened. Tell us the story how we came to hire you.
So Tom arrived and he was this flamboyant, beautiful American, and elven-like in many ways. And he came from this mythical place called Burgschneider, from which I bought my tunic, actually, that I worked on, and my skirt. I was wearing a skirt, very manly. I just found him very interesting. And he said, if you ever wanted to do some modeling, maybe, we keep in contact. And we did. And somehow you found out that Tom had met a guy who speaks English and studies international business law, and you invited me around, and we came to talk, and we had similar ideas and similar interests in a way. I mean, you used to play Warhammer, I used to play Warhammer, we got into talking. I don't know why you hired me. That's probably that's more your background or whatever. But Tom was the connecting element. Tom brought me to Frankfurt. Now I live here. I work here. It's interesting who you meet in a forest. That's what happened.
I actually just like that you stayed around till I don't know. I think we went to a pub later on the job interview, and some time at 2:30 in the morning, you asked me when is this job interview happening?
So what happened was I arrived really early. I came here really early in Frankfurt. I had a light breakfast, and Markus then explained me the whole live adventure deal and Dein-LARP-Shop deal, how Burgschneider collaborated and helped them survive their personal issues and debts. And it was really interesting, but I was at the end of it really hungry, at which point Markus suggested a beer. And I don't know, you don't ever eat, I've never seen you eat anything. And by the time we finally got our food, we had a few drinks, and it was 2 o'clock in the morning, and I did ask Markus when is this interview happening, because it was all so much, but it was just really interesting. It was.
Can we see crazy. Some more pictures of Lesser, or?
Yeah.
That's from ConQuest last year. That's when we started Aderon. That was my first collaboration with Ruth. And we also had help from Marco and Simon. They're both two very old LARPers. They're great. Marco does the Herlager zu Lauf and helps Ruth with Westward. That's how they know each other. Westward's a great Western con. And then we also had help from Anna and Sophie, who are very well known in the LARP scene. They do fantastic magic. They do the Dark Elves, or organize the Dark Elves for Epic Empires. They played some pretty nasty witches in my character's view. But anyway, it was a real adventure. We played this little knights band, and with a prince who came to Mythodea, into the Tross, the city. And we tried to order and organize the Tross and take them to war under one banner, and that was quite an adventure, which then led to Sturmbach. Thanks for making that happen.
We will talk more about this later.
Oh, okay. All right.
Can we see more pictures? Who's that? How I really started into crafting, there were two people. There was Marina van Rotten, who helped me a lot, and I had this idea of having a character, a street fighter with a ton of armor, and on the armor there are stories from his life. And I did that really badly. I had plate armor and I drew on it with nail polish, and it looked shit.
And Marina said to me, listen, this is a cool idea, but this is bad execution. You can do this better. And she helped me find a person who did such an armor. And that guy coached me into making my Street Brawler's armor with similar to the armor you see here. He then exited the undead flesh, and that's how I came to my second character, which is this undead character, which I built upon, and it's Hussam's old armor. I built upon it because it was very clear. A lot of people from the scene said, you can't be Hussam's character. I didn't want to either, but he was so well known and so special that I then had to change it. So I didn't play the famous knight he played. Of course, I can't fight as well as he can. Instead, I started off as William Milner's squire. I took the armor apart into many little pieces, and it didn't look like that. There's a picture later on when you can see the squire. But then later on they offered me a higher position, so I added more pieces again, and now it's pretty much the full set that Hussam used to wear, with some differences, of course. I mean, you have to change some stuff, that's sure. So it's an undead. This is actually the Street Brawler. I wasn't wearing the armor there. This was the moment I realized, you see my brother on the left, standing left of me, my LARP brother. His name is Juan, or Thomas as well. Everyone's called Thomas, it seems. And that picture is quite special because it was that moment I realized I wasn't the pretty brother. You can see the happiness is just in my face. Just, God damn it. It was at Tortuga, a fun con. It was very, very funny.
Yeah.
Another picture from Tortuga. Actually, you can see Stefanie Freining, who plays Lady Venora from Ateron. That's one of the places I really met her, and she's René Smolenar's partner, who played Prince Godric. That's actually quite funny that picture pops up. They came in for coffee this morning.
Yeah.
And we're back to the beginning.
We're back to the beginning. Yeah.
Oh no, that's actually Mir al-Bacha. That was just before I thought I was going to die. That's the painted armor I got coached for. That's my first character. You can't exactly see the little minute pictures on it, but if you get close, you can see all the different pictures and people who are they're sort of part of the armor. It tells a story. That's why I like that one. And that's my first con as William Milner Squire with the torn apart armor. There I'm getting beat up by the Blood Pact. Man, those were good fights. We were 13 undead, and it felt like 2,000 Blood Pact. I think it was more like 100 or 150. But that was sport. That was fantastic. They played well. They gave us some chances to be the bad guys with only 13 people. You can't imagine that sounds very scary, but that was good. That was at Nordgard, which is a really cool LARP location.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
It became part of Bogenwald now, yeah?
Yeah. Here I look more Arab, or not Arab, but sort of Oriental. That was again at Al-Bacha. I'm not wearing the armor. That was before we all went to war at each other over principles. I really like that picture, and it brings back fond memories. That was probably the most beautiful con that I ever went to, or maybe Nantao, I'm not sure. That's another really spectacular con. Now we're back to the beginning.
Yeah. All
right, sweet. Trip down memory lane, in a way.
All right. The director, Tom, gives us a sign. We are about to go into a break. So we will make a short break for 3 or 4 minutes, and then we are back with about being an international in Mythodea, and how we plan to tackle the the challenges that are involved with that in the future, with gaming mechanisms and how to get international play going, and that you international players don't miss out on too many plot relevant things because of the German language barrier. Stay tuned. We see you after the break. Bye bye. See you in 4 or 5 minutes.
See ya.
Hallo, da sind wir wieder mit SKALD.
English?
Sorry. Hello, we are back with SKALD TV in the studio today. Lester, who is part of the directors team, plot directors team, responsible for NSC questions, and me, I'm Markus.
Maybe you introduce yourself as well, because I don't know if we've done an English stream with you in it. So maybe introduce yourself to the community.
Yeah,
What's
that's
your name?
Right. It's always in the German audience. Always kind of most of the people already know me because we did a lot of things over the last few months. In the English community, I'm Markus Böhm. I'm I'm the founder and one of the founders and the CEO of Burgschneider GmbH. Burgschneider is a company that does costumes and clothing, and we 1 year ago, or a little bit more than it's almost 2 years now, got approached by Philipp Heidkamp, who was the founder of Life Adventure, because he ran into financial troubles, and the whole thing looked very critical, and he approached us in order to find a plan how to rescue the project, the great Mythodea project. And we thought, if we can make it happen, we must. Yeah, because it's the biggest LARP event in the world, and it's a very iconic thing, and it would be really, really damaging to the community if it would end this way. And so we worked out a plan to rescue that company, and we managed to do that, and it's part of the Burgschneider group now. We own 75.1% of Life Adventure now, and this is how things are at. And since in our company we always have a very partnership approach, so in the management team we are 4 people now, and my job in the management team is marketing and strategy and everything that comes tomorrow. That's why I'm also sitting here and I'm interviewing you, Lester.
Yeah.
Hello. And my first contact with LARP was actually because 20 years ago I actually I founded and run a game store. Do we have a picture of that?
We should. Yeah, give me a second. I'll pull it up.
Brot und Spiele.
Yeah, it was called Brot und Spiele, Bread and Games.
I was going through one of the back rooms, and I found this huge sign. I think we should hang it somewhere here.
A sign from the shop. That was such an awesome time because I loved the atmosphere. That's how the game store looked like. That's where the people. So like on the right you see one of the guys who was working there, Andy. Hi Andy, if you're looking, and his son. And his son last year made an internship here for 4 weeks, being 20 years old and tall as exactly. You met him, and then that's me, and then on the left there is Justin.
Yeah, he works in bookkeeping.
Yeah,
he usually works over there. Behind this wall there is the bookkeeping office.
Yeah, he's still around. He's our accountant. And Annette on the left side, she was an intern at that time in the shop, and that's how I got into contact with LARP, and also it was my great love, fantasy role-playing games. I made it a profession at that time. Yeah, it was
I mean,
fun.
he doesn't look it, but you are a bit of a nerd. I mean, I found some magic cards, I found some Blood Bowl that no one owns here, and it turns out it's actually all his. You also went to a LARP, right? Before Sturmwacht.
That was Sturmwacht. That was my character at Sturmwacht. I played a burn victim.
Can you prove it? Because it doesn't look anything like you.
I sent my double.
Markus Böhm lets people laugh for him.
No, that was actually me. I also played another character at Sturmwacht, but that was one of the while accidentally searching Markus' draw, Mareike writes. Okay, and we actually have a Blood Bowl league in this office here. You just haven't seen it.
It's just secret.
Yet.
It happens at midnight.
Yeah, it's like a secret underground organization. Yeah,
so it's like illegal dog fights, but more extreme.
Yeah, more extreme. Yeah. Okay. All right. Enough about me. I thought it's good that you guys know who I am and who Lester is. That you know who is talking with you here, and so internationals at ConQuest. We have a lot of internationals at ConQuest, yes. And a lot of them like ConQuest very much, but they also have a grievance about ConQuest. What is that?
Well, this is not a grievance they have necessarily with ConQuest. This is a LARP specific thing. A lot of people like coming to Germany for LARP because German LARP is quite good, supposedly, and there are some good costumes that we have in Germany. We have some good props. We have some good event locations. But the problem is the language, and the players, if they come from Italy or Spain or even England, they have problems getting into contact with the main plot, and that can be a little bit hard as well for the people setting up the event to ensure that internationals will be part of the main plot. But we've got some ideas also from the community. How to make this a bit better, how to ensure that internationals have more connection with the plot and feel more involved. It's always going to be hard because we can never ensure that everyone speaks English. I mean, we can't ensure that, but we can definitely try to find mechanics to bring the plot to the internationals, and we have some good ideas about that.
Yeah. What are some of those ideas? Can we share them?
I don't know. Maybe we can. Okay. So we have a camp that we are working on, which will be also for internationals, but also German speakers are invited to play there. But the experience will be mainly in English. And this camp will draw a lot of the main plot and give it or facilitate it in-game to the English-speaking or French-speaking or Spanish-speaking players. We hope that we have a lot of attendees who speak, for instance, Spanish and English, and can then help bring the plot to the other internationals. But yeah, this camp will definitely be a melting pot. It will receive a lot of attention from us, and it will thereby have mechanics to get the main plot to the players who come from far away.
So this will be attached to the town, so it will have a central location.
Indeed, yeah, and also not only will it have a nice theme to it, perhaps also deals that we can facilitate to make it even easier to get a costume and play with us. There will be English guides, and we will also have very well briefed playmakers or game makers. These
We
in German.
get into this later.
Yeah.
Later, what that is, a playmaker.
These people, though, just to start the topic a little bit, they will facilitate play via in-game interactions and ensure that the internationals feel that they are part of the plot, a vital part of the plot, because they are. I mean, they come all this way. They bring their costumes. They bring really cool new ideas and mechanics with them from their LARPs, and we should feel honored that they come all the way out.
For me, it's so enriching to the experience of ConQuest, or even on Sturmwacht we had a lot of internationals. Which is I say even because it was a rather small event, like 200-300 people. So basically, it feels so much more colorful and richer with having people from as many countries as possible around. I really like that. So, and we really appreciate that. Thank you, guys. And also, we would like to have more of this.
Yeah. So we'll definitely always try our best to engage with our internationals and try to make it easier. For people who come from even further away, we have tent deals that we've worked on. So if you can't transport your tent, you only want to transport your gear, we can hook you up with a tent, of course for an additional price, but a lot of people who come all this way,
basically there are several services to that. So we will have we already announced that last year. We have a full tent hotel. So basically, it's a complete experience. You will have a bed and a tent and a little common room and something like that. Then we will have rental tents. So basically, that's a lesser priced variant of that. So basically, you buy a tent, and when you leave the event and you bring it back, you get a partial refund on the tent. And then we also will have this international camp that will serve as a plot hub for the international players, and also a plot distribution location where you can pick up plots and you can find groups if you don't have a group to interact with or to go with on quest or into battle. Then you can find your group there to do it with.
Yes, and again, we have a lot of people helping us out already with the Crimson Company. There will be people there who can initialize this international camp's plots which are within the camp, so it's very tight-knit, very group-specific. Those are always very interesting plots, but there will also these people, these playmakers will also be briefed as to bring players deeper into the Mythodea plot, which is, if you don't have a guide, sometimes a little bit complicated, and we want to make that easier. We want as many people as possible to understand what's going on, and for them to be able to interact with the world, because it's a beautiful and colorful one.
Yeah, and we are also working on mechanisms where we kind of force it a little, so that Germans and internationals have to interact, because the international content holds parts of the puzzle that the German content probably doesn't, and vice versa. So you basically have to play together in order to get to the solution. Is that right?
Yes, that's of course right. You say force sounds powerful. I mean, it's yes, sometimes it's a bit difficult to speak another language, but LARP is an exciting hobby, and why not try another language? I mean, especially in Germany, a lot of people do speak great English due to watching Game of Thrones, I suspect, or maybe the schooling system, I don't know. Yeah, I think a lot of German players will feel enriched to be able to play with internationals. For the internationals now have important parts of the plot, important parts of the story, and interesting gameplay mechanics to interact with. Now there's even more reason to play with the internationals.
With forcing, I meant kind of incentivizing, overcoming the barrier.
Yeah, no, I know, of course.
Sorry for brutalizing this beautiful language. It's not my first language, so...
No, I didn't mean that. I just tried to elaborate more upon it, and I mean, I think it's a great thing to have these mechanics to make it essential to play with our friends from abroad.
Yeah. All right. So basically, going at this with a fresh team, we first of all identified what are the key areas of the game and the game mechanism, and we kind of identified there's that fight and battle component to it. Then we have the drama and conflict kind of play. Then we need a lot of ambience so that you feel like you live in another world, you know. And you have that scholar play, which is very popular in Mythodea. So it's about lore and deep lore and really getting to know the all the like fine details and fine mechanisms and deep mechanisms of how the world works and how its history looks. And we have we identified something which we call class and professional play. Yeah. Like you want to be a mage, so you have a way to get to do mage stuff, and you want to be a healer, so you have that healer aspect. Yeah. To dive into all 5 of those areas, so we had Sturmwacht and we tried a lot of new things. Yeah. For the fight and battle stuff, we couldn't do that much because it was a 200-300 person con with 70 NPCs. So there wasn't that much battle going on, although we had a battle. You even fought in the battle. How was your experience there?
It was really, really cool. Everyone, there were fewer NSCs, of course, and the battleground wasn't an open field. So the players were really nice. They LARPed mit, which is a German saying. They LARPed with us, NSCs. They gave us a chance to actually become a threat to them. They let us get into the courtyard a little bit better so that we could fight safely. These are things that interest me when I'm organizing or helping to organize a LARP. Is the safety aspect, the fun aspect. You're not completely in the game when you're trying to organize, so those were the things that I had my eye on, and that was great. So that the players they liked to get hit properly, so that they could have a dramatic fall to the floor and get healer play. And sometimes at some LARPs I feel like that's not so prominent. People don't like to be weak or take a hit or to do healer play. They always want to be the strong man. And I really enjoyed that at Sturmwacht, because a lot of the NSCs were doing exactly that. They were losing or being weak, sometimes showing weakness, and a lot of players did that as well, and it felt very dramatic. So that and the safety aspect were the 2 things that I thought were quite remarkable at Sturmwacht, and that the players were all on board for it.
Yeah, and we kind of also worked with a lot of effects.
Yeah, for instance, okay, this is some deep lore here. When the Skagen die, they turn...
Can you explain what Skagen are? Because some people probably don't know that.
Skagen are our newest NSC faction. They're one of the bad guys. They're northern inspired. They come to our shores and they bring dark and mysterious gods, and they have a reason for being here, and they have a reason for being so violent and taking blood, which you will have to find out in game, of course. But they arrived at Sturmwacht and they had hostages, and they had human motives, and they were calculating in a way as well. They didn't seek the all-out fight because they were playing for time, turns out. And The Skagen here, of course, they turn into mist or fog when they die, as a respawn mechanic. And a lot of times you can do that with telling, which is, you sometimes have to do it, you know. It's telling is when you say this is happening in front of you. You have to imagine that it happens, because certain things you just can't do. Humans can't turn into smoke. But what we did is we used smoke grenades to symbolize the Skagen turning into smoke. We had white smoke grenades, and we would have people, when they die, they would pull a smoke grenade and they would waft some smoke about. It's quite a lot of smoke, actually. And they would disappear back to good old Bulvet, who was in that video, the broad guy. And he would start singing and bringing back the Skagen from the fog and materializing them back, and they would storm into battle again to...
so that's an important design goal we have. It's like getting rid of telling, like trying to get everything to be enacted, or how would you say that in English? Like
enacted is good, yeah. You have to present what you're doing. For instance, if you say you turn into fog, it would be kind of great if you, well, you don't actually have to turn into fog. It'd be cool if you did. It would be a lot cooler if you did.
If you come as close as possible.
But if you come as close as possible, that's kind of cool. If you do some fire magic, it'd be cool if you like produce a little spark through magic or something like that. That would be kind of nice, because it helps the other player to LARP with you. He's like, oh, okay, so he's doing some magic. Okay, ooh, or you know, be scared or amazed. It works a lot better instead of you say to someone fireball level 5. That makes you think you're in a video game, but you don't want to be in a video game. You want to be in a magical world, right? I mean, that's the whole LARP thing. You want to forget that you're at an event. You want to start to believe that you're Lady Venora or, you know, Prince Godric or any other player. You want to be that guy. You want to forget all your troubles. You don't want to feel like you're in a video game. And mechanics like that, like smoke bombs and sparks and whatnot, they help you go deeper into immersion.
All right. So that was one thing that was new that we tried out at Sturmwacht, and that we definitely will incorporate more on our bigger cons. The drama and the conflict play. How did we? What new things were happening there?
So we established Aderon at ConQuest, but then we had Aderon as a larger faction at Sturmwacht with 40-50 people, some Skagen playing Aderons in between. Aderon is a kingdom ruled by a queen. Is it a queendom then? Is that a word? I don't know. But she has 7 sons. They are mighty warrior princes, not magic or anything, but they are strong, and they have fought in many wars, and they are fighting against the Skagen now for 7 years in their homeland. And they come to Mythodea to seek help, specifically at Sturmwacht. And they brought with them knights and ladies and simple folk who had simple problems, and they all had their secrets. And their secrets were spread across Sturmwacht among the players, because a secret that you don't tell doesn't really exist. So we had a principle, for instance, called Tell Your Secret. We incentivized our NSCs to drop letters with their secrets in them so that players could find them and try to help the NSCs with their problems, or, you know, use the secrets against them to gain political power. We would also incentivize players to drop their secrets. We had this thing, which was quite funny. We had a mailbox where you could throw in your secrets, little secret letters, and then the mailman would accidentally give the letters to the wrong people. And then we would see what would happen. And that was kind of fun.
Yeah. All right. So that was a new drama, that tell your secret thing. And there was something like, we had that very tightly constructed NPC faction, that new faction from Aderon.
Yeah.
And all the Aderon players basically had their character, and those characters were deeply connected with each other. Yeah. So they had Bruce always called it the Aderon soap.
Like a Spanish soap opera, pretty much.
Basically, and so if you would have been a player at Sturmwacht and you wanted to have like drama play and those small things where you can get into the world and interact with the world, what would you have done?
Well, a lot of times the plot, I mean, there was of course a larger plot, but the smaller plots, the add-on plots, they would approach you. These playmakers would engage you and they would offer you play, not by saying, hey guy, want to play with me? They would be like, oh, I feel so bad today. Today is the anniversary of the death of my husband. I still think back on him. And then, of course, that's an invitation for the player to ask, well, what happened? And then a whole story might unfold. Again, this is just an input. And if the player says, no, I would rather like to drink, or I would rather like to fight, or there's a ghost plot over there that I find really interesting, that's fine. But we try to have as many offers of play as possible. So
next to the main plot, which was about an artifact that was hidden in that castle, which actually the Skagen tried to get for themselves and find out where it actually was. It was also the players tried to. They didn't even know it existed over. Some quests and riddles. They kind of could get the hint that there is something hidden, and they got it and rescued it. So that was the main plot. Besides the main plot, we had like tons of different smaller side plots that you could discover. Probably you could tell us more about that.
For instance, well, we try to have mechanics in place so that players who do certain things feel like they're actually changing things, that they're actually engaged in the world and their actions have consequences. So one of the things that you had to do to uncover the artifact was find key pieces in the form of stones that were held by very interesting ghosts. These ghosts, again, were usually players from Ateron who jumped into an extra costume they either made or we facilitated, or a Skagen would jump in. We had a lot of characters jumping in between. That was fantastic. That was so cool that people willingly wanted to do that. Honestly, we had such helpful NSCs there, and these ghosts, they would have little personal plots, and for solving these plots you would get a key piece, and those key pieces would then at the end unveil the artifact. A statue would unfold and reveal the artifact. That was one of the ways players interacted in little custom plots. There were fights over skeletons which would spawn. The island was alive, it would be spitting out skeletons. These skeletons were connected to the ghosts. Again, such a mechanic. Here we see, for instance, one of the Skagen playing as one of the ghosts. Isa actually had some great scenes, great little scenes that played for drama. For instance, you're asking how do you get engaged with plot. So she played a very an Ateronian as well at some point who was scared of fairies, and she waited at the table until one of the fairy player characters walked by and then said something, oh, I hope the fairies won't touch me or won't bring more bad luck to me, and then threw salt back behind her shoulder to accidentally hit the fairy, and she would then play to lift the fairy, would say, oh, I'm sorry, I did not know that you are one of the Fae, and excuse me, I didn't mean to, and then the player would feel very important, and was then invited to ask the Ateronians why fairies are so special to their culture. It's these little offers of play that you get all over the place from the NSCs in the events that we construct.
Yeah, and but the ghost plots were still very much connected to the main plot, so it was kind of part of recovering this artifact, yeah, as I understood it.
Yeah.
But there were also other plots that were totally irrelevant to the main story, wasn't there?
Yeah, I mean, usually a lot of things would be connected, but certain things, of course, wouldn't, for instance, help to lift or solve the magical plot. There were a lot of social plots. So, for instance, we believe that the reward for good gameplay or questing or playing in a LARP world doesn't necessarily have to be an artifact or money all of the time. I mean, sometimes it can be. Of course, you do something very big for a king, of course he will reward you, but sometimes it's the role playing itself. So you have a beggar, you help him out, you have some emotional play with him, and maybe he has a special story, maybe you have engagement on further events, maybe that story will become relevant. Sometimes the reward for play is the play itself. That's something that's also very important when we write plots.
Yeah, there was this is a question from the chat here. Could you say something about the plans to give NPCs more options to play, interact with players, please? So basically, that was something that was very new at at Sturmwacht. We had a NPC location outside of the castle. It was basically the camp of the SKALD, which players could play with and play in and play with the SKALD. Could you tell us something about it?
Yeah, so we try to set up a location for our NPCs, our evil NPCs that before you couldn't always interact with. There were occasions in the past where you could interact with the bad guys, but they were rare. We want to make more such occasions where you can interact with the bad guys. There's still going to be the bad guys. It's still going to be a dangerous situation. But these bad guys have motives. They're not just bad for the sake of being bad. They have backstories. They have little plots. Sometimes if you help out a bad guy, maybe he'll help you get into the camp. Maybe then you can sneak a peek at the map and you find vital information that you can give to the Aterons, and they'll help you out in return. That's, for instance, one thing that happened at Sturmwacht.
Or you could sneak into the camp and overhear something.
Yeah, so that's actually, I'd like to talk about echoing. That's one thing we did at Sturmwacht as well. It's a theater mechanic that I witnessed first at Albacha. So you and me, we're not assassins, we're not elves, we don't have great hearing. I cannot hear much anyway, and I don't know, I'm useless. But in character, I want to be cool, right? I want to be the elf that hears everything. I want to be sneaky and cool. So to make that possible, we have our NPCs talk a little bit louder when they think they're not being observed. So they're standing together, they're saying, "Yeah, and did you see that point when the shieldman stole the ring from one of his comrades? Yeah, he gave it to his wife. Oh, why would he do such a thing?" Again, that's an invitation to play. We have other ways of using echoing. For instance, if we have a speech or something is happening, 1,000 people can't see, we have playmakers in the front who repeat what is happening very loudly. Oh no! He smacked him. Yes, he did. Did he? Yes, he smacked him with his right hand. He's bleeding from the nose. Why would he do such a thing? So that even the players in the back rows will understand what's happening. And it also makes the crowd kind of lively. People start shuffling about. People start having a little bit of heart pounding. It starts to feel like a real scene. So echoing is very useful for making players in the back understand what's happening, make them feel like they're part of it, and B, also to drop secrets. I mean, if I'm one of the playmakers and I'm speaking a bit loud, it doesn't mean that I'm hard of hearing or stupid. It means I want to have the player be able to engage my secret or my gameplay. That's pretty much how we do echoing. We use it to generate play.
Yeah, and in general, this is something we want to do in the future. In general, all our events most likely will have one or several in-time locations for the big NPC factions.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk about that more after a little break.
All right. Tom told us we need to do a little break here.
Yeah.
After the break, we go on with the future in-time locations for the NPC factions and how we gonna plan to work with that. And now we are off for 3 or 4 minutes break. Thank you for listening and watching so far. See you after the break. Hey, here we are back from the break with SKALD TV. Some disclaimer. If you are an Amazon Prime subscriber, you can connect your Twitch account to your Amazon Prime account. You can thereby be Twitch Prime, and if you're a Twitch Prime, you can give us for free a subscription once a month. That helps us a little bit to refinance our stream here, and also for the statistics, it's not that bad. Thank you very much in advance for that. Also, if you have an idea what we should present in the stream, or if you have a character that you would like to be portrayed here, or if you have a group that you would like to be portrayed here, or if you have a project or an orga or a topic you would like to talk about here, please write us an email to tv@skald.com, and Eva, our booker, will contact you about an appointment, and we will be sure to make room for you here in the stream. Thank you very much. Looking forward to also having loads of international content here, because actually we would love to have that. And also for you guys, we will have at least once a week, we will have an international stream with loads of things concerning Mythodea and concerning LARP in general in the future. Okay.
That sounds exciting.
Yeah.
I'm not paid to say that. That's my opinion. It didn't not sound honest. Oh God.
All right, Lester. Back to topic. What is it with those NPC camps we want to have?
Yeah, I did drift off. I started talking about echoing. So let's get back to the juicy part for the NSCs, but also for the players. So these camps that we will have at events where we have our warring NPC factions, like the Undead Flesh, which are undead knights, or the Skagen, which are Northmen. These are in-game camps, so we facilitate tents and certain structures and tables and flags and so forth. Some players may facilitate some little written statements and whatnot to give it some more flair, some community flair, because a lot of these camps always live from the participation of motivated NSCs. That gives it, spirit. These camps are places where players can find plot, essential plot, but also background on these really interesting factions. And they can interact with NPCs if they find the right way to interact with them. Remember, these are the bad guys. If you screw up, they will do bad things to you. But don't be worried. You can play with these guys. No one's going to kill your player character. That's just not going to happen unless you want it to happen. You can also contact Ruth or me or Julian, and we can facilitate you with a very dramatic and cool character death. That's always a possibility. But whenever you put yourself in harm's way, you'll be rewarded with great roleplay and a great experience. But we're definitely not going to kill your character off just because you're brave enough to engage in some exciting and dangerous roleplay. I mean, we want to incentivize that, and that's what these camps are for. For NSCs, these camps are great because they get to finally play out more of the background of their very interesting factions. They get to talk, they get to play in the off time, which is not just war and shouting. They get to they get to finally portray the background of where they come from, have some personal motives, do some role play. They get to speak, and we ensure that that's always background conformed by having heavily briefed playmakers amongst their ranks who take care that it all is constructive role play that's being played in these locations.
Yeah. would it be okay for a player to loot or pillage those camps?
Man, now you look excited. Yeah, no, we have that at Sturmwacht, for instance. We have a thieving rule set, which is where you can take in-game items. It will be on the new website as well, how that can be done. You usually have a playmaker with you from the Thieves Guild or the Shadow Guild who will help you out there. But generally, thievable items are marked as such. And if ever you're in doubt, you should always approach one of our SLs. We'll come to that later on, I think, and ask them, hey, I picked this up, but I'm not 100% sure if I was allowed to. And of course, then that's okay. You go back, you talk to the person or the camp where you got it from, the NSC camp, and then you can get rid of any confusion.
So basically, items that would be designated to be taken by players would be marked as such.
Yes, they are marked as red items, or if it's not 100% clear that it's a thievable item, you will usually have a detailed description, perhaps even a picture. But in most cases, you'll also have someone accompany you and your crew. So that you don't have any issues. Because the thing is, thief play in LARP often results in...
And there is no Shadow Guild.
There is also no Shadow Guild.
Yeah, so that thing that you described is actually not possible.
Okay, so the thing...
So if there would be a Shadow Guild...
If there would be a Shadow Guild, or a representative thereof who would help you out in thieving things, you would probably not see him. He would probably be invisible, similar to a ninja perhaps. Yeah, you would definitely be helped out so that you don't have an issue. Because thief play in LARP is always a problem. It can sometimes turn into OT theft, where people then call the police. That's happened. That's a problem. That's why a lot of people say in-game thieves are not good LARPers. They do a lot of damage, or they purposefully break things, people say. These things have happened, and we're definitely trying to combat that conception of thief play, and we want to make it cool. So we want to have loot to be taken from the NSC camps. We want you to have those situations where you sneak into a camp and have that heart pounding. I hope they don't see me, and yeah.
So the items that are lootable will be clearly marked as such. If in doubt, rather don't. Or before you have asked somebody who could tell you whether this is actually the case. And that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, so usually if you are some sort of guy who is in espionage or thievery, you will ask fellow shifty-looking people, and they'll help you out, and they'll tell you where to go. Otherwise, you can ask one of the SLs in-game. You can ask them, I see there is a Skagen camp here. Perhaps there is something of need that we can gather from them, some sort of information that would help us in the effort against them. And then the SL would say, yes, wouldn't it be great if you could spy a map? Or perhaps there is a red bundle that you could gather there full of their supplies and their food, and we can starve them out. Something like that. You would get the information very clearly in-game as to not break your immersion.
Yes. All right. So that's for the NSC camps. What else was new? I don't know if it was new, but was kind of special about the NSCs at Sturmwacht. For example, that an NSC who played a Skagen, would he only play a Skagen?
That's something again that just made my LARPer heart, just nearly explode when that happened. We had a bunch of Skagen. We had half Skagen, half Adirons, and we mentioned once or twice, if you fancy playing an Atiron while you're not going to war with Skagen, that would be cool, you know, this is how you would make a character, an Atheron character. We sell you cheaper deals, so it's easier for you to get the garb together for an Atheron character. Or we would say to an Atheron character, if you would like to play a Skagen, we want to make that happen. You know, if you're not needed during a battle, for instance, because the battle is for the players, really, it's not for the Atheron characters, then why not jump into a Skagen outfit and help us make a real threat happen? And a lot of the people at the event had 3 or 4 costumes with them. I played 4 different characters while there to help different factions, but I think there were only, I think the fewest number of costumes anyone had was 2. A lot of the Skagen played Atherons in the downtime. They played for Rose Garden. They all had rose oil on, and they're all kind of fancy. And they brought some real cool play in the evening when there wasn't some fighting. You know, instead of going to bed or going to drink or go out time or something like that, they decided, nah, we want to carry on playing. We want to carry on bringing plot to the players, and that kind of effort was just exceptional. That was just beautiful.
Yeah, that was awesome, and that is something. And we also had a whole stash of costumes ready in our headquarter, in our director's headquarter, which basically we could also lend out to NSCs to quickly jump into different roles if needed. And that is also something we like to move to the bigger events. So basically for our NPCs, we want more role play if they want to. So if you just want to go to battle, that's totally all right. But whoever feels like, yeah, this is, I would like to have more role play scenes and more actual role playing, we will have. We will really very much like to have you in different roles all over the event. Yes. And we will also, even at ConQuest, we will try to make that happen. We will see by the scale of things whether it's possible. But we will, therefore, that's an organizational change we will do. We will move the plot headquarter to the NSC camp, and also our fundus. What's fundus in English? I don't know.
God damn it! Our costume stash,
our
wardrobe.
Stash, our wardrobe.
I think that's the word.
We will also move it to the NPC camp to work with the NPCs that kind of want to go out and play. To quickly put them in different costumes, different roles, and send them out into the camps to make play. And of course, again, for ConQuest, as Markus just said, Sturmwacht is a different beast than ConQuest. ConQuest 10,000 people-ish, and we have to see if the mechanics that work on Sturmwacht also work for ConQuest. We definitely do trial and error. We listen to the team that still works or still helps out. So we have to see if these mechanics transfer to these large-scale events. And we definitely understand that if, I mean, Sturmwacht was like, I don't know, 5 degrees, 0 degrees, it was a bit cold, but ConQuest is notoriously hot. You have the laser sun, and it's a different kind of fighting that you have there. You have a lot more fighting. So if you don't feel like playing role playing, if you just want to sit in the pool, you know, put on your sunglasses in the OT camp and just have a drink, that's fine. If you need a rest, that's okay. But we have 100 more mechanics to give you more role play if that's what you're feeling. The in-game camp, but also you can jump into different characters and play. We want to make that possible for our NSCs. And we also want more NSC play during battles. So where before I understood, I'm not 100% sure whether this is right, there were actually rather role play during battles, like verbal role play at least, was rather discouraged. That's an interesting thing. There were certain characters that did speak, like priests, clerics and so forth, and like the fog singers of the Skagen who bring the Skagen back.
There are certain characters that do speak, but we believe that with good briefing, more characters can speak. Of course, we don't want to have long debates and tea and crumpets on the battlefield. We want fighting, we want blood, we want war, you know, we want epic battles. But perhaps NSCs can also drop something here and there. Shall we start talking about battles as such and the battle mechanics? Is that a good time to talk about that?
Yes. Do you mean the new battle mechanics we are looking into?
Yeah. I think that's the next point, right?
Yeah. No, that was the last point.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
But never mind. If you can do that. Yeah.
I think this is a good time to speak about that, because what we want to do is with battling or with battles, for instance, at ConQuest, we want to tell stories as well. We want to have, for instance, different segments to a battle. For instance, you escort a ballista to the walls of the NSC camp. That'll be your first segment of battle where you have role play. Then you have to defend the ballista, and you have different people holding speeches in between these segments to try and strengthen the spirit of the player warriors. And in the meantime, you have, of course, the NSCs provoking the players. Then you have to tear down the wall, for instance, and behind the wall you must disrupt a magical ritual. And in the end, you'll be able to tell a story at the campfire of how this battle commenced. We will also do in-game briefing to facilitate further roleplay before these battles. We'll have a battle zone in which characters will receive roleplay. So they will be told by, for instance, the different army leaders how or what they are going up against, what they will be fighting, and what consequences this might have. And you'll really start to feel involved, like you're actually fighting for something.
Basically, one of the problems was that there was a lot of waiting involved. So there was a battle about to happen, but the NSCs weren't there yet, or the players weren't there yet totally, and that waiting time led to a lot of OT outgame.
People get a little bit frustrated. They're not sure. You're standing in the sun. You were told that war is coming, but war definitely has not come yet. So you start talking about your cars or your computers because you just don't know what to play anymore. But this battle foreground, we hope will lift a little bit of this outgame boredom, and people can, for instance,
and then we identified that as a problem, and we sat together with some of the old battle coordinators of ConQuest, and we did a brainstorming on how can we solve that. And then Okko Müller actually came up with that idea. Let's do a battle zone, like a foreground where all the players collect, and it's kind of fenced off from the battlefield, so that you actually even don't see the battlefield.
Like a courtyard.
Like a courtyard. And we do a lot of play to prepare the players for the battle, to have different missions in the battle, also for different professions. So like for the healers and for the mages, and is that so?
Yes, of course. We want it to feel as if everyone's doing their part. The healers have to feel like they've really contributed to the outcome of the battle. They'll have to get heroes out of bad situations. They'll have to be defended. They'll have their healer guards and whatnot. We will try to find examples and motivate such play. The mages should go into magical combat with NPC mages, of course. We want everyone to feel like they have a place on the battlefield, no matter what. And
also to get a more coordinated player action. in the battlefield. So there will be also scenarios that we are playing, so tactical goals that need to be achieved.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I was talking about in the beginning. You can have capture the flag mechanics. You can have fights against a structure, defend a structure. But we also want it usually to go in stages. So you'll have a first stage, which is preparation. You'll tend to have a preparation stage, then a protection stage, an attack stage, a holding of an objective stage. There are a lot of these mechanics that you can take and then write a story behind, and then it feels like this battle is something that you're heavily invested in. We try to, or we hope that we can manage that. That would be pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, and then once the NSCs are there and they are there in full regalia, there will be a signal and everybody goes out on the battlefield and the battle starts.
Yeah, we talk a lot about briefing. We will have morning briefings in the beginning of every day, so as we have a plan as to when we need who, when, where, and why. And in that way, we hope that we can have our NSCs at the battlefield or the battle scenario when we say they will be there. So we hope to cut the time of waiting before the battle short by briefing very well in the morning and staying in contact throughout the day with our different factions. Because waiting time kills immersion, and once you're out of immersion, you have severe difficulty getting back in.
That's exactly it. It's basically all the things we are doing with that. Is the goal is always to have less immersion breaks. Yeah, Ruth always says immersion is like sleeping. So it's very easy to be woken up, and once you're woken up, it's very hard to fall asleep again. You know, and that's a bit like what immersion is. So we try to have really minimize the things where you really lose immersion. Yeah, because you are confronted with some outgame mechanics, or you are bored or something like that. And at the same time, we always try to encourage more play and more drama. To really get into, to really have that drama experience. Yeah.
Of course, we try to keep that to a minimum, but there are certain points where the player has to be taken out of the immersion, especially in battle when it's about safety. Yes, immersion is a very precious good, but human life and safety is worth a lot.
Not by any means.
Not by any means. So there are, at times, there will be SLs, of course, who might break the immersion to prevent, catastrophe, injury, and that, of course, very important. I mean, we won't do immersion at any cost. That's not what we will do.
All right. So we have that drama and conflict area. So next area we identified as something being a core gaming or game design issue is ambience. So what do we plan on that front? Or what did we already do? What did we do at Sturmwacht, and what do we plan?
Going one step before Sturmwacht, Ruth was in charge of the Tross. One thing she was in charge of was not only Ateron, but also creating more ambience in the Tross, more gameplay in the Tross. But for ambience, there were a lot more lights, which really made the town very beautiful at night. There was also sand in the sort of Arabian quarters. Some people did not like the sand. Some people really liked the sand. For me, it gave it a real flair. There were palm trees buried in the sand to give it that sort of feel. You were definitely more involved in it. And then the more piratey, the more scumbaggy. Wait, that sounds mean, but pirates are scumbags. I mean, deal with it. They're the bad guys in many ways. Anyway, that felt more dirty, more nautical, and those types of ambience we did at ConQuest. At Sturmwacht, we had, for instance, we talked about effects, of course, but we definitely tried to create ambience through having musicians there, masking a lot of OT things, outgame things we tried to make invisible by spreading cloth over them or dismantling them before the event and then putting them back in after the event. Having old tables, in-game cutlery, we had a lot of those things, and this ambience was of course strengthened by, for instance, certain events, like we had special little festivals like the Night of Joy, where there were lots of lights which looked beautiful in the old hall or at night outside. A lot of people wore masks, and that definitely put the ambience in. People wore masks, of course, to mask themselves from fairies. I mean, I don't need to say this. You all know that.
So they're like two ways we transport ambience. It's basically, one is by props and decorations, which we did at the TROS, where we kind of invested. Heavily is a bit too much, but we invested into the lighting. We had little street signs and stuff like that, so little details that made the world feel more like a world.
Yeah, it comes alive.
Exactly. So that is one thing. We also did that at Sturmwacht with some banners and some props we put in there. We will definitely do more about this in the future, but the other way to transport ambience is by doing lore stuff, or not lore stuff, but traditions of the world. So we at ConQuest we had that festival of lights, which was about fallen comrades. And lighting a candle for each of them and telling each other a story about the falling conquest, about the fallen comrades. Yeah, and then we had the another festival with the flowers.
Yeah.
The flower festival, which was about.
We had first of all we had this festival of lights where people walked through the streets of the TROS with little lights, and they were encouraged to tell someone else about a person they have lost and to share a deep moment so that two people would be connected, strangers mostly, and at the end people would put a light next to a statue. And in the beginning people were a bit afraid of playing this kind of weakness, opening themselves up a little bit, not being the strong warrior. But at the end of the night the statue was covered in lights and it was beautiful. This was a sad night, but also a night of remembrance and definitely great role play. The next day was supposed to signal fertility in life, so it was the flower, the festival of flowers and the festival of love. And people were motivated to give each other a flower to show their appreciation of the other person. Sometimes strangers, but sometimes maybe someone you really liked. And we see some pictures here of the Festival of Light, Die Nacht der armen Seelen, the night of the lost souls. It was actually called. There we are patrolling, of course, this beautiful moment at the crowning ceremony when two beautiful people who had won the most flowers and were supposed to be the king and queen and have a party held for them throughout the whole night at the TROS, there was an assassination attempt by the bad and evil Skagen upon the prince, and that definitely it sets a mood, and that's also part of ambience, this transfer of mood.
And another way for transferring ambience was like at Sturmwacht we did a ball, with medieval dances and a medieval band, or we had like.
Did you dance?
Nah.
Why not?
I was sloshed.
Oh. Well, at least you're honest.
If you're not working.
Nah, it wasn't.
Oh, okay. That was just a joke.
That was just a joke, yeah.
Nice cover up.
So basically we had the ball, and we had a fighting ring out there, and we had Highlander games and style games there.
Like throwing big tree trunks and so on. Tug of war. Yeah, sorry.
So the ambience part is part about better props and better decoration, more details, more tiny things that we can use, and also about making a world come to life by having certain things that are kind of customs and traditions to the world and feel like things that you celebrate, and that are also ways to offer play to each other. Yeah, for example, the Light Festival, it was supposed to work in a way, and it worked brilliantly in that way, that everybody was supposed to tell each other a story about a fallen comrade that they mourn. Yeah, and so that is also getting into interaction with each other and generating a play.
It's attention to detail, which is like with costuming, little stitches and embroidery. That really makes the costume come alive, but it also makes the event and the world come alive. If everything is just, you know, some medieval chairs and you know, you slap a flag there, that doesn't do it all. You know, you need the customs and traditions and very fine details to make the world feel like it's alive and well designed. That's definitely very important.
Exactly. So we try to invest heavily into that. There was a question in the chat about how can you improve atmosphere with technology for medieval games. We are actually today we had a meeting with a AR company that is heavily invested.
What's AR?
Augmented reality.
What does that mean?
That means like you mix analog elements with electronical elements.
Those big words.
Yeah. This lesser.
No, I mean, I didn't know what augmented reality was for a while, so I'm just thinking maybe explain it, you know, in detail so that people know what it is. I mean,
it's basically what I said. It's mixing up analog and digital realm. And transporting stuff from the digital realm into the analog realm and make it create an experience there. So we are looking very much into this, but there's not much I can say about it yet. But there's some stuff to come there.
I mean, if you want some other examples, I think we should cut to break in a minute. But one thing you can do, for instance, is work with LED strips, bury them underground so that you can symbolize the ground glowing up with power and magic, for instance. You can have, for instance, like at Albacha, they used underwater breathing to symbolize people drowning. So people would walk into the water and they would be given a scuba set underwater and then transported away, so that people had to assume the person drowned and then he was taken out of the water at a different place. Or you work with black light, for instance, and UV colors. These are all really, really interesting things, and players that see it, this happened to me, for instance, the first time I saw people working properly with technology at LARP, it's jaw-dropping. It feels like real magic. You're in your immersion, and all of a sudden, bam, some effect like that happens, and you'll never forget it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Our almighty director, Tom, wants us to go to a break again. We come back after the break with scholarly play and what we plan on doing about that, like knowledge seeking and lore experiencing play. We will be back in 3 to 4 minutes. Thank you for watching so far. Looking forward to seeing you back after the break. Bye bye. See you in 5 minutes.
See ya.
Hello, here we are back again with SKALD TV. Mythodea Insider today, Lester and me here in the studio. We had a break before we could get into scholarly play, like the knowledge seekers out there. What kind of mechanics do we want to present them in the future?
Scholarly play is oftentimes when people try to dive deep into the lore and the mechanics of how the world as such in-game works, and that's of course very interesting. It's not the surface of the event. I mean, you don't necessarily need to know these things to have a good time, but for everyone who wants to dive deeper, we need that gameplay. We need those mechanics, we need that stuff. The way to motivate scholars is, of course, often through certain institutions and factions, but also we have, again, we come back to technology. We, for instance, have very heavy forum play in Mythodea. Yeah. We have forum campaigns that we run and work with our different campaign factions to establish. So again, there you can find deep scholarly play. There are campaign events which are central and mainly deal with these things. This lore we will have strewn all about. I mean, if you want to find this, you call it, for instance, this. It always sounds derogatory. The word for this is fluff. It can be vital in understanding the world and solving problems in the world, but generally it's background information. The term for it is fluff. This fluff will be strewn around everywhere. Our NSC factions will have, for instance, their own writing that players can decipher, and they will often drop texts or have texts lying around. Sometimes these texts are vital, sometimes they're a little bit funny. Sometimes they make you understand the motivations behind these factions. We have many such ways of bringing fluff and scholarly play, to those interested in it. It's one of many elements that people can engage in.
Yeah. Like the concrete example would be Sturmwacht. How would you? So there was a lot of content we built beforehand, which were actually deep Mythodea lore. Yeah. If you wanted to have discovered that as a player, how would you have to go about?
Well, a similar example to when I said if you want to have some shady roguey action, you would look out for the shady roguey looking people. Same thing goes for scholars and mages. Often these factions go, or these classes go hand in hand. You would look for other scholarly, official looking players, usually an NSC faction, and they will facilitate you with such play. In the case of Sturmwacht, we had our heavy Mythodea lore with our two main NPCs. The Siren and the Emerald Protectorate, or the Emerald Defender sounds wrong as well. The Emerald Guard. Those two ladies had very deep Mythodea lore with them, and they managed to describe it through making players look for the skeletons and the ghosts which were on the island, and they, again, who were an old expedition from Mythodea, held a lot of old Mythodea lore. So if you're looking for very Mythodea, very deep lore things, you always have to go to the places that look like they would have that. And it's very clear. I mean, if you see a magical crystal, you're not going to expect to get drunk. If you see a rogue, you're definitely not going to expect to have a very pleasant conversation. It's archetypes and stereotypes. If you see the mage, the guy with the big hat and staff, or the long ears and the magical tattoos in his face, he's probably going to know something about the world.
Yeah. All right. So one way to experience stuff would have been, I mean, there were like engraved old writings spread all over the place, so you could you could find those and basically decipher those, and thereby find some lore points.
That example is great. What we had, and that connected a lot of different classes. We had 4 pieces of a large stone stone board on which you could find the secret of the island. So it was a language that could be deciphered by finding texts that certain NPCs would drop, or by using math, for instance. But it was interesting how people got to these blocks of stone, because they were very heavy. They weren't made of foam. They were made, of course, of 2-ton granite. So people were carrying them like this. So, you know, the scholars would have to get some sort of hardy people to get the stones from the bad guys, from the Skagen. Or one guy did it best. I mean, or may have been a gal, I'm not sure. But I remember being told this later on in the briefing. They didn't want to steal the stone chunk from the Skagen. They sat there with a monocle, and they were deciphering it from 100 meters away. I mean, awesome. That was combining sniping with scholar play. That was so cool. No one thought, we didn't, as event managers, didn't think they would come up with that. That was just the best solution to it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so another way to find out what would have been what was going on was like getting engaged with the 2 main figures, which were very clearly high fantasy, Mythodea, deep lore characters. You could identify it easily by costume and by their appearance. So how could you have gotten more information out of them?
Well, we used to have in LARP in general characters that looked so powerful and scary that you would be scared to approach them, because you would fear they would kill you, or they would put a bad spell on you, and some of them of course will. But to take the fear away from you, a lot of these characters that look very powerful, very scary, very special, they'll approach players if players seem to worry about approaching them. And generally you would start talking to them, and if they felt like you wanted to engage with them, they would interact with you. They would LARP with you. They would not block you off. They would try to engage the plot with you. But at the same time, if you didn't want to, they would of course then find a way to disengage, because the player has to decide what he wants to play. We won't decide that for the player. We will always facilitate as many offers as we can, as many little gimmicks and toys and characters to play with. But in the end, the player has to decide, do I want scholarly play? Do I want fights? Do I just want a barbecue? They can decide what they want to have.
Yeah, all right. Okay. And now there was, we already talked about that, how could you improve ambience with technology. We had some technology gimmicks in store for the magical players.
Yeah, I mean, there were definitely some interesting things. We worked with UV lights as well. But when it came, for instance, to magical analysis, we tried something out. We tried a certain way of game mastering, SLing, in German Spielleitung. We call our game masters SLs. We tried something out where usually you would do a little ritual to identify what magic was occurring with an object, or you would do your spell to find out what was happening, and then you would go OT like this, and you would go to your SL and you would say, so Bob, what's happening here? What am I seeing? And we thought, well, that could maybe break the immersion of players a little bit, so we tried to have our SL stand close by while someone was doing magical analysis. so as to explain to them what they may be seeing. Like for instance, I'm getting.
So the game master this time wasn't wearing a white shirt.
No. All our game masters at Sturmwacht were in costume, but they had a sash, a yellow sash, very, very clearly yellow. No one wears yellow in LARP, it seems, and a huge yellow bag made of linen. They would always be. You could always tell that they were SLs, and that was, for instance, Julian or Ruth. Or Sari, and they were our SLs there. And they would then say, for instance, you're magically analyzing something, and we would then describe to them, do you not feel cold? I feel cold, to suggest that this artifact is maybe dark and emits cold. There was criticism, valid criticism from the community for this kind of SLing magic, and we've taken a lot of that in. One of the mechanics that we want to work with, to come back to technology as well in SLing, is the UV glyphs. We want to work.
So the difference there was that you would, instead of going out game and explaining what the people saw, rather tell them with in-game messages.
Yeah.
Where they could kind of guess what they've seen.
Yeah. We were trying to make that even better. But for instance, if we have a location which is a little bit further away and there's no SL, we would like to have a library in the town, for instance, or in Sturmwacht in the throne room, where there is a little library where you can read up on runes, and these runes would then be, for instance, on an artifact in UV light, and you could discover them with a little UV lamp. If we use this mechanic, we will definitely inform you. Such a UV light costs €2.50, €5.
Yeah, we will also have them in Dein-LARP-Shop in the future, as well as the smoke bombs and all that stuff.
All these cool technology features, definitely we want to try to make cheap and available to our players to better create immersion and ambience through cool props and effects. But that would be, for instance, another way of showing scholars how to analyze magic. That's a second option for doing that, and we're definitely working with other groups and people in the community to find new and interesting ways to not break immersion when people need to get out-game input. That can also be a little text that's underneath a rock that you're analyzing, things like that. We want to try to keep our SLs, our game masters, as informative as possible, but as intrusive as they have to be to ensure safety. I mean, you can always go to an SL and they'll always have the info, but we don't want our SLs to have to break the immersion of the player.
So we had we identified 5 key areas of game design. So first was fight and battle, then drama and conflict. Then we had ambience, we had the scholarly play. Something that's very close to it, which is the 5th, is like class or profession play, where you would play your character class, like you're a fighter or mage or priest or rogue, or you would play your profession. Rather. So what do we plan on that front?
LARP lives with stereotypes. You have very few magician, king, sorcerer, alchemists. You usually tend to have an alchemist or a healer. And so that these roles feel like they're engaged heavily in the plot, we try to have guilds. That we want to give a lot of attention to, a lot of briefing to, a lot of tools, a lot of mechanics, props, effects, so that they can explain or help players experience more of the play that their archetype seeks. So the fighters would go to the Fighters Guild. The fighters have role play to show them how to fight better, of course, but also find plots that are relevant to fighting. To experience a lot of very immersive fighting styles, and these guilds will then also have connections to the different larger camps, so that we have as many points as possible to engage in that type of play.
So that is something we are planning. We are planning to establish open and very play-friendly guilds in the Tross, in the city, in the town, at ConQuest, and those are not meant. I mean, I'm sure every bigger camp has something down that road, like they have like a place where fighters do their fighting thing, and scholars do their, like, I know at Astra, we just had at Astra in the stream.
Yeah, those guys are cool.
They have like this whole knowledge seeker tent and stuff. So those guilds, are they meant to substitute that, or how's this? How should we understand that?
You always have this saying, das eine tun, ohne das andere zu lassen. Do one thing without not doing the other thing. So all of these things that are established currently will continue to exist, but we want to establish some other factions that have interconnectivity with each other that we can ensure, so that the gameplay you experience there becomes more relevant. And of course, the established factions can help and join in that kind of play. I mean, they're not prohibited from it. These things can interlink. They can work together and create a better immersive gameplay for these archetypes. I mean, if, for instance, Ad Astra thinks it's a good idea to support the Mages Guild and bring people there, or take gameplay from there to their camp, then that's great. You know, this is just a point where you can pick up your gameplay. Yeah,
and we also by that we also want to establish something like a career path for different classes. So in the Mage Guild, you can also rise the ranks and like have different like academy style play.
What's also kind of great about that is they're in a way LARP melting pots, because you'll have a guy who does magic this way and he does it with these or those effects, and you know, has a very specific way of how he plays his magic. But then you have another person who does it completely differently through dance and music, maybe not through you know, effects. And then you have a third person who does it through meditation, and he puts stones on the ground and draws a circle. And you have all these different people who can, in-game, exchange on how to display magic. And you can go into this course. Same thing with fighting. You know, you have different weapons and how to fight. You can exchange a lot of really cool in-game play on how to do it. You know, like you may have a different idea, which I may decide, okay, that's really cool, I want to get in on that. Maybe you can teach me. That's really cool. And these melting pots, these points, you really know what you're getting at. This is something that's sometimes a little bit hard with large events. You sometimes don't know where to get your play, but if that play is quite clearly, you know, you're a fighter, you're looking for fights, there's a place that's called the Fighters Guild. You know what you're getting there, and we want to try and maximize that experience. We want to put all our investment behind that.
Basically, the way we put it is like we have a vertical and a horizontal way to get play. So the vertical way is the main plot line. You kind of get involved into lore and plot and drama play around that. And the horizontal is more that professional style. So you are new to the event. You don't know what you want to do. You don't even know what's it all about. But you know you're a fighter, so you go to the Fighters Guild, and there you can have a way to ease yourself into the game.
And as you said, these two axes, they are connected though. And we hope that through these guilds we can immerse people more in the Mythodea world, and through the rise, as you said, through the ranks, we also hope to bring the world closer to them, and maybe offer them a way to get deeper into the lore. So it's another way of establishing the world further, as we talked about before. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so I think we covered that in abundance here. The 5 key areas of game design, and along with that, with all that thinking and designing we did, we said, okay, probably it's time for a little rewriting of the rule set, because the rule set that exists in the internet is not the rule set most of the people by now play by.
Yeah. So what we're working on right now, or what we have right now in Mythodea, is a rule set that very few people still play by. It's a points-based rule set that also incorporates telling. We talked about telling. Telling is, I mean, I can't make fire, so I tell you fireball, and it's 5 strong, so fireball level 5, and you throw a red tennis ball, and then the other person knows how much damage that is. We think that because very few people still do telling, very few people use these points. A lot of people just nowadays play, in Germany for instance, just by you can do what you can represent. So if I can represent...
Like what you see is what you get.
Yeah, like for instance, again, as we talked about with magic, if I can produce some smoke, people are probably willing to admit that, you know, I can do some magic, you know, and they're willing to play out what I'm giving them as an acting input. For instance, like you have with wind magicians, you have you know, they have these large fans. You know, they'll do a dance and they'll wave this thing around, and they'll wave it down once at the end, and people know, okay, now I have to be blown away. This is a, you know, a wind attack, and a lot of people use that instead of shouting out points. So we thought, well, if no one's using this really, I mean, again, there are some people who use it and they can continue to use it. Why not?
Yeah.
You know, we don't want to restrict anyone.
Yeah.
But if the broad majority in German LARP is not using this, then why not make something simpler and, you know, that's more relevant to LARP as it is now? So we started.
So that resulted in CSM.
Yeah.
What is that? What is CSM?
CSM is our working title for the rule set that we're currently working on. What it is a bunch of suggestions how to play and a bunch of please don't do this, otherwise.
So CSM stands for can, should, must.
I was getting there.
Oh,
But
yeah,
it does. It does stand for that. It's 3 different types of rules. Can rules are you can do these things. Everyone has the right to do these things. These are game offers. Like for instance, you can tell your secret to people. You can enjoy fights, but don't have to. These are all. This is a very long list of suggestions of things that you can do, and then should is our belief in what makes LARP kind of pretty, kind of nice.
It's basically about it's like a guide to how to get the best experience out of the game design we provide.
Yeah, that's what should is.
That's what should is. Yeah, and can is also like isn't it?
In a way, yeah. Can is broader though, because we don't want to force anyone to live by the principles that we think is important to our design. Should is really just the thing. This is how we've designed the game. If you want to get the fullest experience that we've tried to establish with the community, then you will most likely get it if you work with these should principles. For instance, LARP mit is one of these central things. If someone engages you in play, show a reaction, any reaction, that would be great. You know, just to show that you take your fellow player seriously. But also, if ever you do bring play to another player, don't necessarily force a reaction, because someone
or expect a specific
or expect one.
A specific reaction.
Yeah, exactly. Because no one is forced to play with you, or that's the thing. You have to want to play with one another. So always hope for the best, but also accept if someone isn't having a good day. Yeah. So that's, for instance, one of those things. And then we finally come to must, which are the things. They're mainly OT, out game. They're just safety precautions, like, for instance, listen to the SL. Don't park your field in the don't park your field in the middle of a car. Sorry, don't park your car in the middle of the battlefield. Park it at the designated parking space. If you bring kids along, take care and take heed to the rules that we have for kids and parents. For instance, the kids are not allowed on the battlefield; it's just not safe. Don't stab people with LARP weapons. Those things, everyone. I don't know. I believe a lot of people know these principles and these rules. These are just things that are important that we have to ensure. And those are the only ones that people actually have to abide by. The can and should are pretty much just game offers and how to maximize your game. And we believe if you play by those rules or guidelines, you'll definitely have a fuller and better experience.
So basically, the can rules, so we have 3 sets of rules. The can rules are kind of suggestions how you could handle things. The should rules are things we strongly encourage to do in order to get the best experience out of the game we designed. And the must rules are basically mandatory rules everybody has to abide by or obey to.
They are the law.
Because they are, basically they are mostly driven by the law. So it's things that we are legally obliged to demand from our players in order to make it a safe experience for everybody.
That's pretty much it. I would say.
Yeah. All right. You mentioned that part of the should rules are also the game principles that or play styles we would like to encourage. One of them is a thing called play to lift. What does that mean?
Play to lift is something that's very important. For instance, not only do you portray a knight if you have squires with you, or a lady, or whatnot, or a king has his entourage, but these players have to lift that specific character up. If you play a very foreign character like an elf, it would be kind of cool if your fellow players started playing as if you were something very alien and special. And would be like, oh, did you see that beautiful, gracious creature? That makes you feel special. So these players are lifting you up. They're giving you the stage, and they're letting you facilitate play for them. And then in vice versa, you should do the same for other people, because they'll only give you the stage if you give other people the stage. If you keep taking the stage, people will probably not LARP with you as much. But if it's a friendly give and take, it happens more often. It's
a thing we like over the last weeks. We had so many streams, most of them sadly in German, so we will improve on that. We will have more streams in English in the future for you guys. But one thing that became abundantly clear by having interviews with really a lot of LARPers and people sharing their LARPing experiences with us is that the greatest experiences for everybody involved always came from when you played in a way where you always tried to give the best scene to the other person. So basically it was like I put it in a way that in order to win LARP, you have to try to lose it, you know, because you can't win LARP. It's not a thing, I think. So basically, So if somebody comes up and he plays a king, yeah, then try to play to lift him and honor that high role, you know. And he is even more in responsibility to give you a good playing experience back. Yeah.
There's other similar things that we have with players and NSCs. For instance, the players would always say, "Oh, the Skagen are such strong warriors. They've taken so many of our towns," and then all of a sudden everyone feels a little bit scared of the Skagen. And then the Atheron characters would say the same about the Skagen, and the Skagen would say, "Although we hate these elementals on the player side, they do give good sport. They are quite a hardy bunch, but we are stronger." So they would honor each other, and it would feel like it's people playing together, and helps with world building as well. But you have a lot of these situations. For instance, all of my characters are eternal losers. They're born to die, and they always lose. They're always beaten up.
But here we come to a second principle. The first principle in our should rules is play to lift. The other one is play to struggle. What does that mean?
Playing to struggle is a lot of things. If you, for instance, always win, you don't really get that feeling anymore. But if you get punched in the face a bunch of times and you lose a few times and then you finally win at the end, you're beaten up, you're battered, like in the movie, like the hero in the traditional stories like Hercules or whatever, they always lose a bunch of times. Then they have a little, in the middle they have a little success, then they get beaten up a few more times, and then they finally win, and then pretty much it starts all over again. And that's just a simple way of storytelling that always works. And if you struggle, if you put yourself in precarious situations, then you'll always be rewarded with cool play. Because when you struggle, when you're beaten up, when you're sad, when you have troubles, you get to play emotional things, and that's definitely something interesting when you usually only play strong and you're the best and whatever. And through struggling, you lift other players as well. For instance, if you struggle in front of someone, then that player is given a stage. That player feels like he's winning. Then again, he'll probably be the one struggling next.
Yeah, somebody said, I think it was in the German stream. Yeah, if you're always struggling, then you're a loser. But that is not what we mean. You know, it's
no.
Yeah.
No, it's you don't have to struggle all the time, but we strongly encourage you to struggle, and that's.
And do this hero's journey, you know,
Yeah.
where you go through a lot of valleys in order to go to to reach the top at one
Yeah,
point.
and struggling can also mean do something stupid. Like for instance, you're invited to a duel, and you think you're not going to win that duel, but go ahead, have that duel. It's going to be the coolest fight in your life. 100 people are going to watch you. You may lose, but you're probably not going to die. And even if you lost, people are going to say, you know, you're the underdog. You did so well. You know, you've been given a stage. And if you weren't willing to struggle, you wouldn't have had that duel. Same thing goes for espionaging the NPC camp. Yes, of course, you may be caught. You probably will get caught. You may be beaten up, but you'll probably find some secret information. You'll probably have the coolest play. 100 NPCs will be looking at you and giving you play. Yes, you're not winning at that point, but you're having the time of your life. You're feeling real emotions.
Yeah, exactly. And it's this is another point. We come to that later. Is that 100 players are playing for you thing, but also playing to struggle means if you are in a situation and you can take the easy win or the hard win. You rather always take the hard win because it gives so much more room for play, isn't it?
Yeah, not just for yourself, but other people as well. The easy win cuts the role play short. The easy win would have been maybe not to let go of the secret letter in front of people, or to just say, yeah, I won't fight you because you fight unfair. Whatever. That would have been the easy way to just block off the role play and not have your honor besmirched or lose. But the hard way would mean a cool fight, a secret being told, maybe some sort of political play may ensue. And yes, your character may take damage in a way, but at the same time, everyone around you and you yourself will have very, very cool roleplay. And you won't get that if you don't put yourself in harm's way. And that's what playing to struggle is. You willingly go and have an accident. That sounds very attractive.
Okay, so our stressed out, no, he's not stressed out, he's totally relaxed. Our director demands another break. We will do another 3 to 4 minute breaks. After the break, we will be back for our final set, which will be about those people we talked about. We talked about several times in the stream already. The so-called playmakers. What are those people doing at the event, and also a little excursion on how we plan to do plot writing, how we like to brief people in the future, and how we like to document what happened at the event in the future. Thank you for watching so far. We will be back in 3 to 4 minutes. See you. Yes, here we are again, back with SKALD TV, Lester and me, Markus, talking about design principles of Mythodea and where we want to be going in the next years to come. And one thing that we touched but several times today, but never really got into it, is this mysterious thing that we call playmakers. So what does that mean? What is that? Is that something to eat?
In some countries, maybe, I don't know. But what it is it's a special form of very well briefed cast character. Anyone can be such a playmaker. We'll have playmakers on player sides, like for instance, a lot of army generals can be playmakers. For instance, for they facilitate play. Playmakers make play. I mean, the word is self-explanatory. They're very well briefed. That's the second element that's very core to them. They have extensive briefing as to how to create play and direct certain play.
And what their plot area is in which they can move in general.
Yeah, exactly. They have a sort of very direct line as to what they're allowed to do or what they should do, as to which will then create said play, but also not make them go out of character. For playmakers are in a way controlled. There's a similar thing to that. They're called gesteuerte NSCs, maneuvered NSCs. They have it's very similar in a way, but playmakers have SL-like competences often, sometimes are even SLs or SLs in costume, because they have a lot of background info and know what they have to bring to players so that they find plot but also gameplay. So yeah, these playmakers are very important to us, and we'll have them also among NSC factions. For instance, if we have NSCs who really want to play their character, who want to go out there, not just fight, then they can become playmakers in a way, and will receive very deep briefings.
Yeah, how would a briefing like that work?
So these playmakers, they register when the time comes for these events to come back online. Right now, registering wouldn't make so much sense because we can't facilitate much info due to we're not getting further ready plot-wise for an event. I mean, we have the plot ready for next year, but right now, as there are no events, we wouldn't continue. So right now there would be no info, but once events are on the horizon, we start to brief our playmakers. They get their background. They get mechanics for how to engage players and bring them closer to plot. They get problems and secrets that they have to drop as to, again, bring players close to them on a personal level. And finally, of course, we have daily briefings, which are very, very important, very informative. We plan out certain scenes that should happen during the day. If they don't happen, sometimes it's okay. We're actually okay with that. You know, it's LARP. You know, it doesn't have to all happen according to plan. Sometimes stuff can go the other way or not happen. But every morning, playmakers receive a briefing, and sometimes over the course of the day, if it's a very full day where the playmaker is heavily engaged, maybe they'll get a second briefing, or they can also approach a designated SL in costume with the yellow sash and bag to reaffirm what they're supposed to do. But generally, even if all of that goes wrong, they will have their information on paper, which they can look at in their tent, for instance. So we have 6 to 7 safeguards on how to ensure that the playmakers know what to do. Also, pretty much all playmakers are very heavily into LARP. They love LARPing. They really want to do a good job, so they don't even often need these safeguards. They're very, one briefing usually suffices.
Yeah. So basically, the way we did that for Sturmwacht. We also had some kind of podcast-like format that they could listen to on the way to the convention, because usually you have a long trip, so you have a lot of time. So we prepared a podcast style thingy for them, so that on the travel they can use the time to get into the plot and get the details and everything. We had some documents written for them to give them information, and we had daily briefings on site. In addition to that, for the bigger events, we also plan like Zoom briefings. Is that right?
Yeah, that's actually an interesting thing that's coming up soon. Zoom, for those who don't know what it is similar to Skype. It's a video call chat where you can have a lot of people in, and we'll have these briefings for different kinds of groupings coming up. So, for instance, for playmakers, we'll have Zoom calls where we'll explain what a playmaker has to do and how they best do their job. That's a very general explanation, very general Zoom meeting. We'll have specific Zoom meetings for specific playmakers from specific factions. So, for instance, we'll have a large Zoom meeting for all playmakers where we'll explain what playmakers do, but then we'll also have smaller Zoom meetings with the playmakers of a specific faction. So if we want to brief the playmakers of the Undead Flesh, we get all the playmakers together into a Zoom meeting, and we explain what their designated objectives will be for the event, and then at the end there will be questions. You'll also, as a playmaker, be able to send mails if you have further questions, but we intend to have our briefings so concise and clear so as to fully brief our NSCs as much as possible so that there are not too many questions at the end.
Yeah. Okay. And so we talked about this. So this is what a playmaker is. A playmaker is somebody who kind of transports play to the players. Yeah. By being briefed very deeply about the plot, and especially his aspect of the plot, so that he is as free as possible to make it his or her own decisions, and basically be as autonomous as possible, and basically this playmaker would frequently during the event touch back base in briefings or in with DSLs.
That's a good summation of what I said. Yeah.
And then there's I would say like 3 types of playmakers. One type is like playmakers that are actually kind of players. So they are player characters that by their office, so they are leader of a large group, or they have some kind of other special outstanding position. They can become, if they're interested, they can become playmakers in order to get briefed beforehand about what's going to happen at the event, and what's the plan, and what's the
so that they can better explain to their players.
So that they can better transport the play for their players. Then you have like the classical NPC playmakers that like we had at Sturmbach, that have a role that is either defined by them or by us, but very much designed to be supportive to the play. And then you have like on top of that you have that SL style playmakers that are also in costume. They also have a role, and you will recognize them by the yellow bag they have around their shoulder, and they are basically so the normal playmaker is very deep in his plot, and the game master playmaker is kind of connecting the dots, sort of.
And that pretty much explains how playmakers work through heavy briefings, but also we give them a lot of freedom. We believe they want to do good, they want to create good role play, and we do trust them with a lot. And even if things do go wrong, we'll try to catch it in the end, or sometimes it doesn't even matter. Sometimes if something was played a little bit differently, often it's okay. It's LARP. LARP is very free, and it changes. And if you try to force the plot, it usually becomes a bit boring.
And we also want to have the capability to basically to react as quickly and as agile as possible to the players' ideas, so that we don't ram through our idea of how things are supposed to go down, but we rather have the capability to react to great ideas from players and go along with it. And in order to do that, we need game masters and playmakers at the front lines that have that autonomy to react to things as they see fit. So that was the objective why we designed it that way, is to get as much flexibility in how the plot will go down as possible. So now there's an argument that comes every once in a while where they say, okay, if all those game masters and playmakers are so free in their decisions, how do you make sure that the integrity of the lore and the world is kept?
Well, as we said, playmakers for a specific faction, they're oftentimes briefed way more than you usually would have. For instance, at many conventions, you brief your NSCs on every single point in the world, and then those characters they'll only pick up 5% of that. But if you brief specifically for one for one special area or faction, it's a lot more likely that the playmaker will understand and note and be able to play everything that he's been told, whereas if he has to remember everything from every faction, of course the playmaker has to know certain connections with certain factions, but not everything, because you can't assume that the regular human being has this much time to remember everything. And if they do have an issue, they can always in-game refer to another playmaker where they where they think that playmaker can help with this problem, where they feel like they're lacking in briefing, and you can refer to each other. We call it in German über Bande spielen. In
play
snooker,
over the cushion.
when you play over the cushion, that's kind of that's what you do really. So if for instance you as Ateron
By the cushion?
by the cushion, with the cushion. So if you're from Ateron and you don't know so much, for instance, about Mythodea, because your character doesn't come from there and you're very much briefed on the Ateron aspect, you'll know where to send the player if he's looking for deep Mythodea content. And then you as an Ateron character don't have to start making up things. No, you send them to the designated playmaker who is well briefed on this.
Yes, and also on the event, the playmakers have the game masters, which will be always around, have a walkie-talkie, so they can reach out to the plot direction team to clear out any doubts they might be about a decision. Yeah, exactly. So plot writing. So I think Playmakers, this is sufficiently dealt with the concept.
I think so.
So the final point for today would be, how does plot writing work in the future? What's the procedure we will be doing there?
As I said, we have worked on plot already for next year. What we've done is we've created a narrative for a concise campaign. The campaign is against the undead flesh and against the tip of the southern continent where the undead flesh is. We have, for the different major events, we have a specific we have an overarching main campaign plot and branching off side plots to this, which involve other factions. And what we do is we have this fixture, and then we involve plot writers from the outside, from the community, if they want, and then they can.
If you guys would like to also provide plot for ConQuest or for one of our events. Please contact us, mail us to regie@mythodea.de,
and you'll receive a registration link. Again, you'll start to hear from us once it starts. In between, you may hear, guys, there's still no events. Sit tight, we'll get to you. Once we start writing plot, you'll hear from us, and then you can apply. Once you're in this pool of writers, you can apply to write for one of the plot points within the main campaign, and we, as the regie, who have to ensure a concise main, overarching picture, will read the plots and we'll talk to you about them, and together we'll make a very cool and vivid world. And we love to have people from the community involved, and that's a way we can ensure that happens.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we're done for today. Are there any questions in the audience that we would have to answer? I get my iPad out so I can watch the chat. The 700%er.
Okay, that's
we forgot about that.
Yeah, we did actually. Yeah, the 700%er. That's an interesting one. So think of, for instance, ConQuest, because it's the biggest playing field, as a large Easter egg hunt in a way. We have little Easter eggs strewn about. We won't tell you where they are, but there's a chance that at some point you may walk into a scene full of NPCs, sometimes some players as well, that will be performing something very large, something very important, and they see you and they will invite you in to decide this plot point, and you will become the center of the scene. 100, 200 people will all be playing for you, and you will be the center of this. And this is a 700% because it feels like, you know, in this short moment you have 700% more LARP than you would usually, because you are the main focus for this one moment. And there's a chance you'll have a moment like this, and these moments are often LARP defining. Like I had 2 of these in my LARP career, and they're like those moments, you know, they're like very dear to you, and you know, you felt like you were the main character in a movie or a book. It was crazy.
Yeah, and it's a part of our design process to kind of have them in all of our events,
Yeah.
and they're kind of spread across the event like an Easter egg. So there's always a chance that you might stumble into something like that.
And the important thing about that, seeing as it is like an Easter egg hunt, and it will be purely by accident that people engage in these moments, we ensure that it's not always the same celebrities who get these moments. We want the little guys and the new guys to also be able to experience this. We want the same quality of gameplay for everyone. Everyone should have the chance to experience this great gameplay, but also 700% is there for everyone. It's like Charlie's ticket to the chocolate factory. That's kind of what a 700%er is.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, on Sturmwacht we had several of those. One was a big scene where all the princes were in the big how do you call it, throne room or something like that.
Yeah.
It was amazing location also. And there was something big going on, and
all the knights were there for a talk, and a lot of very special things were talked about. And the guard in front of the throne room, he wasn't really paying attention, so we had a lot of players at the door looking through the keyhole and listening in, and they of course got the really juicy information about Aderon. And these kind of moments, we have them all over the place, and maybe you're lucky, maybe you'll experience a 700%er.
Yeah. Okay, that's it for tonight. Thank you very much, you guys out there, for staying with us and bearing us. No, whatever. Thank you very, very much, and we really like to see you in Mythodea in our next events, and have a good night. And our next English SKALD TV program will be, I think, next week somewhere, and we will announce it in the ConQuest international group. Okay, see you guys. Good night. Sleep well. Bye bye.
See ya.
Bye bye. Ciao.